Okay. I have to tell you that the readings today are not easy to digest.
Yes.
They are,
Especially the first reading.
all of us, we have to see what we can do with that. So let us say a word about the first reading first, from the book of Ecclesiastes. Okay, I'll tell you a little bit of the background of the book, okay? There was a time in Israel, the year between 300 and 200 before Jesus, when Israel was conquered by the Greek and then the Romans. And little by little, the culture, the ideas of these cultures, Greek and Romans, especially the Greek culture, influenced very much the people of Israel. And they had values that were very different from the ones of the people of Israel. Among other things, what happened during these years is what the people were basically in a moment of relaxation, a lot of rich people around. They had no big problems. Of course, the poor were always there. And they were just preoccupied with incrementing their wealth. Remember that we are 250 years before Jesus. So, the book of Ecclesiastes, the other name for the book of Ecclesiastes is Kohelet, from the Hebrew. Is Kohelet, because we have Ben Sira also, a similar book, Ecclesiastes, Ecclesiasticus. There are similar names, so we prefer to give the Hebrew name for this book, Kohelet, which means basically the teacher. It's a teacher. So this is a wise man. He puts himself at a distance and begins to observe the society of his time. And when he observes, he sees people that are just worried about increasing their wealth, their well-being, and they have forgotten about God. And so he writes, he's a teacher. He looks at that and says, what are you guys doing? He says, you spend so much of your time and effort in acquiring things, in getting rich and then richer and richer, and then what for? It's all wind. Everything passes. One day you will die. So the words that begins today are very famous words of the book of Kohelet. Vanity of vanities, and all is vanity. I remember when we were studying Greek, we had to study 5 years of Greek in the seminary. The professor asked us to learn by heart this original book, some of parts of that. And I remember because it's in Greek, it sounds kind of nice, Matayotes, matayotetos, kaipanta matayotes. Vanity of vanities, of all vanities. And I think I became, a vanity with myself, just learning on that. And one day, I was in United States as a student, but we were playing football. And in the team, there was a man from Greece. I was goalie, he was playing at the back, so we were very close. And then one day I just wanted to, to impress him. And I went to him and I said, vanity of vanity, but in Greek. Matayotes, matayotetos, kaipanta. And the guy looks at me and says, what are you talking about? Because the Greek that was used in the New Testament is called the Greek koine, is the way people spoke at that time. Nowadays, the language that they use in Greece now is different. I mean, still more or less, the same roots, but these are talking in very ancient language. Anyway, it's part of vanity of myself also at that time. So, it's a book that I would like you to read. If you have the Bible, read it, because it's advice to people who are so worried about the material things that they forget about God. The only problem that Kohelet had was that he didn't have an answer for what happened when you die. At that time, there was no knowledge about the resurrection, the message that Jesus will bring. Okay, so this is the first reading. Now, I brought with me another Bible today. It's called the Message Bible. This is not the Bible that we use in the Mass, but it's a Bible that we can use for Bible study. That is what we are doing here. And the typical thing about the translation of this Bible is that the Bible in contemporary language. So these professors who are very good in the original languages, and they are very good in English, so they retranslated the Bible in the way people speak today, especially in the United States. So, vanity of vanities and all vanities, right? That is what it reads, the text there that you have. What does it say here? Let me read. Smoke, nothing but smoke. That is what the quester says. Instead of the teacher, it says the quester. There is nothing to anything. It is all smoke. What is there to show for a lifetime of work? A lifetime of working your fingers to the bone. You see, it's a little bit different, not the way it expresses, but the idea is the same. What's the point of working your fingers to the bone if you hand over what you worked for to someone who never lifted a finger for it? Smoke. That is what it is. A bad business from the start to finish. So, what do you get from a life of hard labor? Pain and grief from dawn to dusk. Never a decent night's rest. Nothing but smoke. Okay. When you read the Bible like that, it sounds different. It's meant to sound different, but it's also meant to speak in a language that you can understand today better. So, this is our man here that lived about the year 220 before Jesus. Kohelet means the teacher who brings the people, the assembly together. And let me read this part here. All is vanity. He repeats 25 times in the small book, this one. And he says, at the end, we are stripped of everything. And this is how he concludes. Verses, chapter 5, verses 14 and 15. And we have repeated in many sermons these words. It reads like this. Naked, he came from his mother's womb. He returns as he came, naked. Nothing of the fruit of his toil is he able to take with him. That too is a grievous evil. As he came, so he goes. So what did he gain from chasing the wind? Strong words. So as you see, Kohelet leaves suspended the fundamental question about the meaning of life. something that we have asked ourselves many times. The answer can only be found in the gospel, as we know. Okay, so this is just a hint of about Kohelet. I have other quotations from him also. At the end he says, it's very interesting because he says, why do you worry so much about things that somebody else will profit? Enjoy your life. Try to, enjoy as much as you can, especially when you are young. He gives a lot of advice there. He says, wow, the Bible says that? Yeah, yes, it says that because he didn't have any other answer. Okay. But he is pointing the finger to the people who says, that's wind, that's nothing, you're silly. You toil and spend your life, the whole life for something, and you are never satisfied. You always want more and more. Because he was looking at the people of Israel, the Jews, some of the Jews that were trying to get rich and richer in his time. So this is the first reading today. Okay? Now, the Colossians that some of you have chosen also, some words from the letter of Paul to the Colossians. It's very important. Chapter 3. Basically, it says, look for the things that are above. Be rich according to God. It's a continuation of the first reading, going a little bit deeper. We know how we are not going to be rich in the eyes of God, and he points that out in the reading as well. All the things that trapped us in this world. How do we know that we are rich for God? When we go through a transformation of ourselves. At the end of the second reading, Paul says, there is no more Greek or Hebrew, slave or master. We are all brothers. And you are rich before God when you remember that. Rich before God. Some people believe that they are rich before God because they say a lot of prayers, because they come to church often. Maybe us also. We try to be rich. Try to be good. We are here every day. We receive the sacraments. And then we think we are rich before God. Of course, these things are very important. But this, my friends, is like training. Like an athlete that trains for the battle, for the sports, where he wants to succeed. Our real test of being rich for God is when we walk out of the chapel. It's our real family life. It's the people with whom we work. It's the reality that we find outside. For that we have to be prepared like an athlete. Of course, it's very good. We need to prepare, but we are just, this is the appetizer. The main course is when we go out. Okay? We need the strength. We need to, build up our muscles, spiritual muscles, to be rich before God. Because this is just training. We are going to be put to the test when we walk out. We cannot succeed there being rich before God unless we have some training. Like no athlete that is preparing for the Olympics these days is just going to, just relax and eat what he wants and she wants, and every day they will be training hard. It's the same for us. This is the lesson of the second reading. So to be rich before God. And it connects also as well with the gospel today, that is from Luke chapter 12, verse 13 to 21. And you have read the gospel, right? So it is the story about a rich man. You know, I suppose in any family there are always some bickering between brothers. You know, they love each other, but there are, you know, sometimes, you know, we're fighting among brothers. It's normal. We love each other, our brothers and sisters. We really do. Until when? Oftentimes, until the time of the inheritance come. We know cases, you know, where something that has to unite us precisely divides us. We divide the inheritance and we divide sometimes, you know. Okay. I would like to share with you a personal experience, if you allow me. It's about inheritance. And we were 5 brothers. One passed away when he was only 16 years old of leukemia. So we were 4. We are still 4 brothers. In 2008, I was in Macau, and they called me that my mother was really dying. I rushed, but did not arrive on time. And what property our family had, they were very poor actually. You know, my father worked a lot all his life, and he built a house practically by himself. A house that, you know, 30 years earlier was a nice little house for the family. We all grew up there. But then when the passing of years, the house is very solid, but it's in a good place in town, so it had some good value for that town, for that small city where my family lives. My brothers are really working hard, the 3 of them. 3 of them are married, but one of them really lived all his life very, very poor. He really had practically nothing. I would not exaggerate even today if I tell you that all his belongings can fit in one suitcase. He doesn't have anything more than that. My parents were worried when this man married and had 2 children, because he was not sure, my parents were not sure that the children had enough food. So for many years, they helped him in any way, you know, out of their own poverty. They helped them to make sure that the kids will grow healthy, and they are. When in 2008, my mother passed away, my father had passed away before, so the only property that the family had was a house. So we gathered just when I was there, because they knew that I was going to be there only for a few days. They said, you know, what do we do? So we decided, you know, painful as it is, we have to sell the house, because, you know, they said, we are not going to use it. We have our own place already. So we tried to sell the house. And then my brother said, okay, we are 4, so we divide into 4 the inheritance. I said, you know that I am in a congregation. I have no special needs. You know, my needs are taken care of. So, and you need much more than I do. You know, you have families. So, you know, count me out. You know, in a way, they expected that also. So there was not a big deal. It's a matter of fact. But then this poor brother of mine, he spoke and he said, count me out also. We looked at him and I said, why? You are the one who needed more. Between the 3 of them, you know, he was definitely the one who needed it more. And his answer was, well, for many years our parents helped me. I received my inheritance already. I do not want this part because I feel that does not belong to me. I already received mine. Of course, the three of us said, no way. You're going to get what is yours, and you do what you want with it. Okay? And that is what happened. Now, if I tell you this story, because I think it is an exception, I don't think that it's something that happens very often. Oftentimes, when there comes a moment of dividing the inheritance, in the time of Jesus and also now, it's problems in the family. Okay, it is good if you find a friend of the family who could negotiate a little bit and help. Usually, it's a good help to find somebody from outside, but oftentimes there are deep hurts and quarrels that begin there at that moment that last, unfortunately, for a long time. And the gospel of today starts saying exactly this situation. When a man, I suppose he's the younger one, asks Jesus, hey, tell my brother. Jesus was a teacher, he was well respected, and said, tell my brother to share the part of the inheritance with me. The first reaction that we read in the gospel is that Jesus says, who am I to say? It's a kind of, Jesus is a little abrupt there. But we have to understand that the rules about dividing the inheritance in the Bible were very clearly placed in the first books of the Bible. Basically, it said this: the elder brother gets 3/4 of the inheritance, and the rest of the brothers 1/4. The reason is that the elder brother becomes the father figure, and he has to take care of all the girls, all the women, brothers, sisters, and any other needs. So that was the rule in general. But with the years, so many different casuistics, so many cases came with nuances here and there. And so what they did, they went to the rabbis to help them solve the problem. Okay? And the rabbis were very happy. Well, they of course knew the law and all the nuances there, and they had experience, but they also would get some money out of that. So they were very happy. And they usually, in the small towns that there were, the houses were very near one another. So there was a place, a gate to enter the village, and outside the gate there was a canopy, a place where the rabbis would sit, the judges of the city. Also, you will hear in the gospel some Sundays from now, this poor widow that go to the judge, please do justice to me because, I'm not being, and the judge was, a bad judge says, I'm tired, fed up of this judge. The judge was sitting there, in that place, outside of the city wall, so to say, a little place there. So this is where the rabbis would sit and would administer discernment for the people. And of course, they will charge. But Jesus doesn't want to enter into casuistics. Never. Jesus goes to the root of the problem. That is what he does. Okay. The problem is here about the goods of the world. Things that we have. Everything that we have, even the air we breathe. Everything under the sun that God has given to us. Bottom line is this: the goods of the world do not belong to us, belong to God. None of the goods of the world belong to us. We think that we are owners. We are just administrators. You might remember that sentence when they came with a coin to Jesus and they asked about paying taxes. And Jesus says, whose image is that? Caesar. And Jesus' answer was, give to Caesar and to God will belong to God. So people in general understand, okay, you have to pay your taxes to the government, that's fine. but then give also proper honor and glory to God. And that's one reading. Of course, it's okay. But I think that the answer of Jesus is trickier. Give to Caesar what is Caesar, and to God what is God. What belongs to Caesar? Nothing. Nothing. Everything belongs to God. And you have to administer. Of course, you have to pay taxes, you pay taxes. But everything with awareness that everything belongs to God. Okay? And God wants all these goods has given it to us to be allocated for all. So you see that not everybody has the goods of the world that they need. So there is something wrong here. And that is what Jesus talks about. Whenever we get attached to the goods of this world, whatever it is, they become an idol. And the idols that are being worshipped, and then we are not rich according to God, the second reading today. And more so, connection with the first reading, vanity, all is wind, empty winds, all is vanity. Okay. Now, then Jesus tells a parable. The parable of the rich fool man. Okay, you read the parable already. You know, he had a good harvest. So he said to himself, what I am going to do? Goodness gracious, now my barns are already full. I will build more barns. You know, and then I will say, relax. You know, now you can live happily ever after. And then God appears and said, you fool. Okay. So what do we see in this parable? We see three characters. One is the rich man. The other is God. And the third one, riches, the goods. That's all. So, listening to this parable, we wonder, this man who appears to be so happy with with all the things that he has now. The harvest has been so plentiful. So we ask ourselves, what about his family, his wife, his children? What about his neighbors? What about his workers? The answer is, he has no feeling for people. He only has feeling for his possessions, for his riches. So we feel sad for him. Because bottom line, he's poor, he's unfortunate, he's a madman. Something in him is broken because he has no inner balance. He has lost the orientation of his life and the meaning of life. So he enters in the parable, he enters into a monologue. He speaks to himself. And in this monologue, there are 50 words. And out of 50 words, 14 of them are I, mine, I, mine. And then comes God, who asks for an account of his life. Fool, tonight you will die. What will happen with all your barns? Okay. Let me insist on this. We might get the idea that God is waiting for us to do something wrong just to say, hey, you did something wrong. This is a story. This is not the main point of the story. This is just a story. Because God does not do these things. Okay. Jesus introduces God in the parable to teach about what are the real values, the true values that is worthwhile to give our life for. And then what are the other values that are deceptive, so superficial? They are not important. Jesus comes to say this: the one who lives to accumulate assets is a fool. So let me pose the question then. So, is wealth something bad? Jesus never said that. Jesus never said that wealth is bad. He says, it's very difficult for a rich person, for somebody who is attached to money, to be saved. But Jesus has never condemned it. Jesus was different from some of the Greek philosophers of the time, who were also against this narrow-mindedness of people just to look for possessions and get richer and richer. And so some very important philosophers, Greek philosophers, they threw away all the riches in the river. They disposed of that. Jesus never did that, never asked anybody to do that, to throw away. He did warn about the dangers of riches. And in verse 21 of today's reading, it says, he has amazed for himself and has not enriched himself in the sight of God. How do you enrich yourself in the sight of God? When you share. When you share all the goods that your intelligent, God's given gift have given you. Okay. Two ways that we can become blind by possessions, by goods, by riches. The first is when we think about ourselves only, enrich oneself alone without thinking of others. What is incompatible with the gospel is not just money, it's greed. Greed is when you have more than what you need and you do not share it. Because greed also always wants some more. It's an insatiable desire to get more and more. This is the first danger. We become blind and we forget about others. The second voice, the one who is attached to riches, actually has moved God out of his life. He has replaced God with an idol. And what happens when you remove God from your life and you are self-centered and you are possessed by greed is something very interesting, important. Is the removal of the thought of death. These people do not want to be talked about death. They think they are going to live forever. They think that they will have time to enjoy all the riches that they have, and they have accumulated for 10 lifetimes. But they are going to die, like we all have. So in the past, people were afraid of death because the lack of knowledge, they didn't have the medicines, Nowadays, we know about that very well. So we should be afraid maybe of pain and suffering, but a Christian should not be afraid of death. Those who have their hearts in avarice and greed, and therefore have put God aside, they don't want to hear about death. That's why the parable says, "Fool, tonight you are going to die." So what is it that we take from this life. Naked we have come, naked we go. We only take what we have done for others. You know that is, we sometimes talk about the 3 T's, letter T. That's time, treasure, and talent. Okay? If you use your time, your treasure, your talent for others, you'll create fraternity, companionship, love. This you will take. The rest, you are fooling yourself, because naked you came, naked you will go, and you will go faster than what you think. So, it is very important for us to think about the thought of death, because we are coming from God and we believe that we are going to God, and we take the best that we can. How we have used God's given talent to us for others. Now, we are talking about the rich, and here it's very, tempting to say, oh, I know so many rich like that. There are 3 fingers pointing at you. You don't need to have a lot of things, a lot of talent, a lot of time, a lot of treasure, money. It's the way you feel attached to it. Because there are poor people also, they have little money, but they have the heart of the rich. So we have to be aware that the treasures of the world are treacherous. They do not accompany us to the other life, the most important part of our life. This life is training only. Let me read a couple of passages from the New Testament, not in today's reading, that can give a little light here. The first is from first letter of Paul to Timothy, chapter 6, verse 7. It reads, "For we brought nothing into the world, just as we shall not be able to take anything out of it." It's an echo of the first reading today. And 1 Timothy chapter 6, it says, "For the love of money is the root of all evil." You say money, you say possession, you say, attachments that you have. What is the alternative? Well, the alternative is, when you read with these eyes the parable and the gospel today, it's very simple. It's to leave the excess out to be used by those in need. It's hard. It's not easy. There are not easy answers. I cannot put my hand in my pocket and give you, this is the answer for you, and you have to find your own. But you know how you are going to be judged. The one who gets more than needed corrupts the plan of the Creator, because the Creator has given us all the goods of this earth for everybody. The social doctrine of the Church in 1890 with Leo XIII until Pope Francis is very clear about that. The responsibility that we have for our brothers and sisters, for justice and equality. So, another conclusion, death should not be scared for a Christian. Yeah, diseases and pain, we can be scared of that. But death is our entry into God's heart, into the presence of God. How do we prepare for that? The only thing that we can bring after death is the love that we have given and we have shared. I think the gospel of today in this context, more than a Bible class, it is a kind of a mea culpa, because who is not attached to the goods of this earth? Some more, some less. Some have been doing that forever. I was once told a little story about why some people just are never satisfied. They always want to possess more, poor and rich alike. And then this is just a story, it has nothing to do with the gospel. But it says, some people when they are born with the fist like this, and some are born with the fist, like that. So it's just, a way of saying, that is how we have to be. All our attachments to things, the things that we need, we can have and enjoy that because we're given to us. But when the things that we do not need, the things that we have and we do not need, do not belong to us. Actually, nothing belongs to us. We are just administrators. But the things that we do not use need to be shared. How? I don't know. But that has been the doctrine of the church for thousands of years. And we all have accumulated more than what we need. Persons, families, countries, institutions. We have to be able to put that for the service of others. This is the only thing we can bring with us. When I was in Macau, we had a very good cook, Tess. You know her, she has been here many times. And then also she likes to have a lot of pots in the kitchen. It's always the kitchen is full of things. I said, Tess, at the end of the year, anything that you have not been using during this year goes out. Anything that you have not used does not belong to us. So make sure that you send it out. No, for some people it's easier, for some others it's a little bit more difficult. That's why the gospel is always looking, where the shoe hurts. And we know our personal situation, our family situation, but the gospel is clear. And it's very liberating when you feel yourself administrators and not owners, because you will be much freer, and you will be rich in the presence of God.